Up and
This
rolling.
call is being recorded.
Okay, cool. Got the notification.
So here we are today. This is Renee Rentmeester, creator and executive producer of the Cooking Without Looking TV show and podcast. And today we have Mary Sanders. Mary, welcome.
Hi, I'm so glad to be here. Hi, everybody. Hopefully everyone's hungry, and if you're not, well then the door's over there. Come back when you're hungry.
but so tell me a little bit about yourself. You said, I know that in a previous conversation you mentioned that you were blind since birth.
Yeah, so I've been blind since birth. I was born early. I don't know, almost 4 months early. And yeah, so I've been living life as a blind person, which is pretty cool, except for the fact that we still don't have self-driving cars. I'm still waiting on that. But what I basically, I don't know if you want a short synopsis or how the best way to do it.
Yeah. Tell
Okay.
us a little bit about it, because like a lot of sighted people don't really understand. They think that blind people live a tremendously different life from everyone else.
Oh,
So
no.
this is your turn to tell us how you live.
Okay. So a synopsis of this would be, so I was born early. I have what we call retinopathy of prematurity. So it's when there's too much oxygen in the incubator, and then that causes you to go blind. So I've been blind since day one, totally blind in both eyes. So I'm originally from Phoenix, Arizona, and I lived there most of my life. And I attended the Arizona State School for the Deaf and Blind in Tucson for several years. I was also mainstreamed in public school for some of my school life as well. So in elementary school, I went to public school in Phoenix to kind of learn to be mainstreamed with the sighted public, sighted individuals, or sighted kids. I don't know, whatever you call it. And that was interesting. I would get inclusion services, and I was taught Braille. I believe it's very important for blind people to learn Braille, even in the day of technology. It's no excuse. We need to be literate in Braille, just like people who.
That's an interesting point, because you are so young. You were born in like the dawn of all this technology.
Yeah.
You're stumping for Braille.
Yes, exactly. So Braille, I will say, it is so important for anybody who has a blind child growing up in the Generation Z, which is, I guess, where we are now, the 2020s. I don't care if there's social media and there's iPhones and iPads and tablets and Apple Watches and talking computers and all that. That's great. But your child needs to learn Braille. That is so important. I'm very much a advocate for Braille literacy. I'm very grateful to know Braille, and it's mind-boggling to me why people are now trying to rely on electronic audio rather than learning Braille for their materials. And I think it's important to have both options rather than saying, well, I can't read, so I'll just listen to it. Well, it's better that you know how to read, and then you can choose, do you want to read the book or do you want to listen to it? But anyway, so I was taught Braille in elementary school when I was mainstreamed in public school. But there were services that were not being met that we believe that the Arizona School for the Deaf and Blind could meet, so I transitioned to that school for middle school and for all of my middle school and 2 years of my high school. And it was wonderful because we learned such things as how to cook. Yes, cooking without looking. See?
There you go.
Literally. Yeah. So a little bit about that. How the school worked was I was considered a dorm student, so I would stay in the dorms because Phoenix was 2 hours away from Tucson. And I think that was wonderful because I could, leave and live with other blind people and learn blindness skills rather than going home to my sighted family who had no idea what they were doing half the time. So I'd say they certainly did know what they were doing when they sent me to the School for the Blind, and I appreciate that. But I can't expect them to know what they're doing when they have never met another blind person or worked with other blind people. So anyway, the School for the Blind was wonderful. So we had, in the dorms, we did cooking projects. So we learned from the staff were sighted, but they taught us using blindness skills. For example, how to measure. They would show us what the measuring cups would feel like, and they would show us how to literally, let's say, dip the cup into the flour to measure out the flour to make cookies, or and how to just use our senses. So use your hands, use your smell, use your maybe not taste until it's fully cooked, but use your use your other senses. Yeah, and so we would be assigned to do cooking projects in the dorm, and then we would also have a class called Adaptive Daily Living during the day, along with other academics. Like we would, there would be a class for Braille, which even us totally blind people took Braille. There would be math, English, all of those classes that everybody has to take. But what was wonderful about the School for the Blind is there was that they incorporated adaptive daily living. So within the adaptive daily living, we would get into groups, and we would also have cooking projects, and we would learn how to cook as a group. So we would make meals. I don't remember all the different things we made, but we would make different meals. And
did you guys have food fights?
I wish we did. We would get in so much trouble. Oh my God. I had one of the best ADL instructors, adaptive daily living instructors. She was wonderful, so I would not want to cause a food fight because she was so cool. I wouldn't want her to get mad at me. And she was so wonderful. And so we would learn how to cook, and then we would also learn proper etiquette. Now, because as blind people, I hate to tell you, you could sit in a restaurant and not know what you're doing, and so it's always good to have proper table etiquette. And so we would learn that.
That's a really good point. I remember going to one blind meeting where everyone was blind except for me and like maybe one other person. That happens a lot. And the lady lost her teeth at the table, and like no one else really saw except for me. I was like, wow.
No. Oh no! Yeah, well, and
I figured everyone was blind.
Yeah. No, that is wow. Oh my gosh. Well, that's the thing. That's why it was so cool. I loved adaptive daily living because we got to choose like different recipes that we wanted to make, and there were times we would have individual sessions too. So maybe I would go in. We would have a group one day of the week, and then another day of the week we'd have a individual goal session. So it's, what do you want to cook today? Oh, I want to cook French fries in the oven, or do something simple. Or she would, as we worked more together, she would challenge me. And then one of the other things is she would teach us how to write our signatures. Because as blind people, we're not taught to write print, but you have to know how to write your signature. When you're signing documentation, unless you want to write an X like what a doctor does, I think I'd rather write my signature. And she would get on me about that. She'd say, hey, you didn't do it correctly. Here's more homework. No, I don't want any more homework. Well, that's how practice makes perfect. And I hate to say it to this day, I don't really remember how to write my full name, so I know.
Well,
my signature.
I was just imagining closing my eyes and writing my name, and I don't know if I could do it.
Oh, well, then that makes me feel a whole lot better. Yeah, but I do know how to write my signature. I hate signing leases, signing documents. I tell you, it's soon enough. Hopefully they'll have accessible technology where you could physically write your signature on a phone using tactile feedback. And we can actually, because right now we have to get sighted assistants writing our signature on a smartphone. Because
wow.
Yeah, it's difficult. But more and more forms that are electronic are requiring that, so it's difficult. and they won't let you submit it without. But I do know how to write it with a pen. So hey,
Oh, there you
um,
go.
she taught me well.
No Crayolas
uh,
for you, right?
no more Oh no, there were no Crayolas. No, you use a pen. If we used crayons, we would get in so much trouble. You use a pen. You do it formal. You write it on a piece of paper as if you're signing a document or signing your lease or whatever it is.
Signing your life away.
She would, and she was wonderful. So, I'm so thankful to have had her. Um, so, so I was at the School for the Blind, and we learned, I there's no way I would be where I'm at if it wasn't for the Arizona School for the Deaf and Blind, honestly. And I've been through other training programs as well, but I feel like I learned so much through them, and they challenged us, and I appreciated that. It's something that you don't get from mainstream public school, and how can you expect that? They're not used to working with blind people. They don't even know where to begin. So
and they might feel sorry for you, right?
Yeah, and they feel sorry, and there's no need for that. There's no need to say, oh, we're so sorry for you, or poor you. Let's put you in a special ed class. Well, what if we don't want special ed? And I'm glad that I was never put in a special ed class. I was always put in regular classes, but it was still difficult because you're learning separate from your peers in a sense. You're learning, how do I work out this math problem, or how do I write this essay, and it will look just like how my sighted peers write it. You learn how to space things out. You learn how to, because as a blind person, we use computers, and but we still have to learn, how to double space, how to indent properly. Because those are visual things, but you still, just because you're blind doesn't give you the pass to turn in a crap paper that is not formatted correctly.
Right.
To get help. Yeah.
Wow, who wrote
like, hey, take a
this?
look at it. Yeah. So hey, take a look at it. Can I get your help with formatting if I need it? I don't mind asking. Hey, that's So exactly. So that's the great thing, about the blind school. So I learned a lot there, and then I finished high school through back in public school, and that was okay. But I would say overall within my life of growing up, I'd say the blind school is where I learned the most. And how to be, and the thing about doing laundry, I know people who are blind who didn't have the opportunity to go to the School for the Blind, and they're in their 20s, and they still don't know how to do laundry. And I think, and I'm sure there's sighted people too, but I think, gosh, I'm so grateful for the blind school, because they would give us laundry days, and they said, okay, you need to go do your laundry on, let's say, Tuesdays. You knew that, and you were sharing with somebody else. You would do your laundry, and they would do theirs in the evening, in the later evening. But you did it yourself. They weren't going to do it for you. You put your laundry in the washer. You put the soap in. You do it yourself. You set the washer. Everything was labeled in Braille. There's no excuse. I'm blind. I don't care. So are the rest of us. So,
Tell me another story.
Yeah, and the only ones that weren't were the staff, but they were trained to not, coddle us. You learn to do it yourself. So we would do our laundry. You learn to make your bed, all of that. And to be honest, making a bed, that doesn't require vision. It's all tactile. I mean, you don't need to have eyesight to make a bed.
Except for that nasty fitted sheet. The nasty fitted sheet I can never get down.
Oh,
what's your trick?
Close your eyes and I could show you some blindness skills. Hey.
There you go.
Tucking under the mattress. Yeah, I actually blind people, sometimes we can do things better.
I think so. That's true. Actually, that's true. And they say, somebody once told me, like, when the lights go out, when the electricity goes out, you go find a blind person, and they will help you.
Do. We will help you. We don't need the lights. Are you kidding me? In my previous apartment complex, my electric bill was like $20-$30 a month. You know why? Because I didn't use the lights. And I know that. Yeah, exactly. So the only time it was higher was in the summer when I ran the air conditioner. But the lights, I don't care. I don't need these lights. What are these things? It was really funny because I have a really funny story to tell really quickly about the lights. So this was years and years ago, and I was calling different apartment complexes, and asking about utilities. And sometimes people refer to electric bills as light bills. And when you're new to this, you think, okay, whatever. Well, I was calling this complex, and she said, well, yeah, you do have to pay a light bill. I said, well, I'm blind. I don't need to pay lights. So if I ever lived in this complex, I won't need lights, so that's okay. She says, this was a Southern woman. She says, no, ma'am. The light bill that's for your electricity. I'm like, oh, so it's not just for the lights; it's for your air conditioning and your washer and your dryer and all. Yes. I was, oh. Because I'm thinking, what do we need lights? I'm blind. I don't need the lights. So if I have to pay a light bill, forget that. I'll get all the other electric, and I don't need the lights. So who cares?
Right. Oh my God, that's funny. And she was just calling it a light bill generically.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny how people use, you look at different regions of the country and people use different wording. So light bill versus, I say electric, someone else says light, and it's very regionally, people use different words. And when you're talking to a blind person, when they use the word light, you think, well, I don't need that. I'm good. Save off an extra $20 here, an extra $40 here. Oh, wait, whoops, actually not. I guess not. I have to run my refrigerator.
Just like everybody else.
Yep. Oh man, yeah.
So what do you do for a living? What are you up to now?
So I do a hodgepodge of things. I do a lot of advocacy work for the disabled. I say disabled. That doesn't sound politically correct. I do a lot of advocacy work for persons with disabilities. So after let me backtrack a second. So after I became an adult, that big thing of becoming an adult. So I moved to Colorado from Phoenix. I'm in Denver. I went to the school in Littleton and just kind of realized, well, I like Colorado. And I wasn't a huge fan of the school in Littleton, but Colorado is wonderful, and I've been able to really get involved within advocacy work out here for different state boards, such as for Medicaid, as well as for the Board of Mental Health. And then also I help with advocacy work through political legislation for housing and health care to help marginalized communities such as persons with disabilities and other communities to receive equitable and fair housing and health care. And so I do a lot of political advocacy. And then I also just do a lot of advocacy through the different state boards. So let's take, for example, for Medicaid, I help work on making sure that the letters that are sent out to consumers are accessible and readable. And that way, as a blind person, you can open the letter up on your computer and you can listen to it using your screen reading software of choice, whether it's JAWS or if it's another screen reader that you use, NVDA, or if you use a Braille display, you can read it in Braille. But we want to make sure that these documents are readable and they're not just a bunch of images. Because let's just be honest, PDFs can be images, and that can be difficult because screen reading software reads the text on the screen. And we're getting better with doing optical character recognition, OCR, where they'll read text inside images, but it's not perfect. So we want to make sure it's accessible. So I help out with that, and then I help just in general with advocacy within the Medicaid and making sure that people with disabilities are getting their needs met. So consumer feedback, because how can we expect that the companies and the state know how to help people who are blind with, let's say, reapplying for services? We don't. So I also help out with the website development and help out with app development. And is this feature accessible? Can you go into the app? Can you recertify? Is it accessible for you to? Are you able to read the questions and answer the questions? Are you able to submit documentation? using your screen reading software. So I do a lot of accessibility.
Now,
And then
how
also,
do you feel?
yeah,
How do you, excuse me a second, how do you feel about, when you see a company, you come upon a company and you find out that their website isn't accessible? There was a time there where lawyers were hiring blind people and then taking these companies to court, charging big money, and then giving the blind person like $1,000, and then they're taking the 40,000 or whatever. Do you feel like you should just go into a company and talk to them about it, or what do you think about that?
well, I mean, we could, I would definitely contact the company, but most of them don't even know what the heck you're saying when you say, what do you mean
Right,
accessibility?
right.
What do you mean accessibility? It's accessible. No, my screen reader cannot read what's on your page. I'm not able to type in the information. I'm not able to read the text on your page. I'm not able to access the information on your page. So it's not accessible. So to answer your question, a lot of the time, if we cannot, as individuals, contact them, and if they're not open to feedback, or if they're not open to, then I have to. There's different blindness organizations, such as the National Federation of the Blind and the American Council of the Blind, and they do wonderful advocacy work for different websites. But I hate to tell you, it's hard to get a hold of them. It's very hard to get a hold of them at times, because I'm trying to work with them on Social Security and making their forms accessible, and it's definitely difficult to, yeah. Oh yeah, yeah.
Social Security,
fun.
that's a big one for blind people.
Yes, and they are not as accessible as one might think. They send letters in Braille, but the forms that you have to fill out to go through the redetermination process are not accessible. I have had to go through, within this past month, a myriad of people to be able to get assistance in filling out the paperwork, because the offices have been closed because of the pandemic, and then there's staff shortage, and then some people say, oh, go find a friend to help you. What if you don't have that resource? And excuse me, but I want to be independent, and your forms are not, they're not even fillable, and you have to print it out and fill it out with a pen and then mail it back. What part of that is accessible? It's not.
Not at all, no.
Yeah. So that's my point.
Not even for a person.
Not even for a
sight
person half the time. Yeah, and with the delays with the UPS or USPS, it's even harder. So I've been in contact with the National Federation of the Blind, and also the American Council, and I've heard back from one of them, and I'm hoping to see what can be done. But my hope is that other blind people also join the bandwagon, because we need more voices, and I know there's plenty of them out there. And for Social Security, that there's no reason there's no reason why we shouldn't be having any of these problems. Not in this day and age.
No,
anyway,
no.
Yeah. So
well, tell us.
Kind of what I do. Yeah, I want to get to the cooking.
Yeah. Well, we've been having so much fun talking about all these other things. Tell us your recipe.
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know when you want me to share my recipe for Crockpot chili. I like things spicy since I'm from Arizona. I love spice. So I don't know if this is a good time to kind of talk about. It's super easy. I'm not like one of those gourmet cooks. If you guys are looking for a blind gourmet cook, it's not me.
No. Just everyday, just a person who every day cooks for themselves or for others, or whatever. It doesn't matter. There have been lots of times where people wanted me to have celebrity people, and I'm like, no, that's not us. We want regular people, so everyone feels comfortable.
Yeah, well, it's really interesting. Before I go into my recipe, there's this guy. So the show is called Cooking in the Dark. I don't know if you've heard of it, but
yes, actually, yes.
Dale Campbell. Oh my God, he's so cool. He's in Texas, and if you want a real blind cook, go to him, because he is a real blind cook.
He's had me on his show.
Really?
When I first started doing this, a long time ago, he had me on the show. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think he's still doing his show, and he talk about true cooking. He does grilling, he does everything, and oh my gosh! And I need to uh, listen to his shows. I know he's done them. I don't know how recent his past show was, but I know he has so many shows. And I need to go back and I need to learn from him. And I mean, he does, real, turkeys and a whole bunch of stuff. And I'm thinking, here I am getting a really crockpot chili recipe, and he's like doing his actual real, Thanksgiving turkeys and these huge lavish meals.
There's nothing wrong with crockpot chili. If you want, if you want that on Thanksgiving, that's good too.
Yeah, well, I have whatever I want on Thanksgiving. I don't remember what I had last year, but it was a hodgepodge of stuff, and it was a whole bunch of it. And that's what I love about Thanksgiving is, especially when I have my own little Thanksgiving, I'm just like, I'm going to get everything I want. No one's going to be offended. I don't have to say no to something. I can eat everything I have in my fridge is mine, and I love it. And it's a hodgepodge of things, so I don't care.
There you go.
Yeah. So for the chili recipe, I'm sorry, this is not like a Dale Campbell super lavish recipe, but
That's fine. That's fine.
Cool. Okay, cool. So what I do, so I like to use the canned pinto beans. So those 10-ounce cans, or I don't know, maybe it's like 14-ounce cans. I don't know. It depends. But I get 2 cans of the pinto beans, and you always want to rinse and drain the beans. So basically, I'll tell you the ingredients first. So I get 2 cans of the pinto beans, and you could use any kind of beans. Pinto does really well with chili. You do black, you could do maybe not any kind, because you don't want to do like refried. That would not be good. But black beans, pinto beans, whole beans. So then I get a pound of super lean ground beef. I like the really lean cuts of meat and the lean beef. And then I do a packet of the super spicy. You can do any kind of taco seasoning, but I like the El Paso super spicy, because Kroger, for whatever reason, doesn't always have the super hot kind, which is the Kroger store brand.
Right,
and
right.
Then I like to get a can of the hot and spicy Rotel tomatoes with green chilies. So I believe it's like maybe a 10-ounce can. I'm not entirely sure, so I apologize if I'm off on my
No,
cans.
it's okay.
No. But then I also like to get a can of whole kernel corn, rinsed and drained as well. And then I also do a packet of the super hot and spicy chili seasoning powder, which is different from the taco seasoning. So 2 separate. I like to buy the individual, the little 1-ounce packs.
Right, right.
So yeah, and then if you want to cut up an onion, you can, or a bell pepper, or if you want to do that. I don't always do that. It just depends. Sometimes I'll do like a bell pepper. It just depends, or maybe even a jalapeno if you want it really, really, really spicy. So what we do is you brown the ground beef on the stove, and as blind people, you might ask, how do you do that? Well, we do a lot of the texture. So since we can't see the different colors, first thing you want to do is you break it up with your fork into a fine pieces, because when it comes in a roll, and you need to break it up into the pan. So there's the beef is in the pan. It takes up most of the pan. So you break it up with a fork, and then you want to listen. So you put it on. I can't think. I generally put it on like medium, or you don't want to put it on high because you don't want to burn it. I believe in low and slow, and so I cook it. And I always cook it pretty well. And then the Crockpot, when you cook it, it'll make sure everything is cooked. So just to ensure that everything is perfectly fine. So what we do is when it's not cooked, it has a different texture. When it is cooked, ground beef has more of a firm texture, and it's not so squishy.
Right, you take maybe a wooden spoon and you sort of press it on there to feel it.
Yeah, so we press it down, And if it's really squishy, and I've even used my hands, and honestly my hands are clean, and and you can well, blindness skills, blindness skills. You can't use your eyes. What are you going to do?
That's
So,
true. That's true.
Then you go and watch them again. That's all. It's no big deal. So it takes a while. Yeah. So you cook it. Well, of course, you put the taco seasoning in, and then I like to put some extra green chilies in to make it a little bit more spicy. The hot diced green chilies, which is an extra can separate from the Rotel. Because I like to make it even more seasoned. I'm a seasoned kind of person, and I like to put like some different spices like garlic powder and maybe some cumin, or the taco seasoning comes with spices too, but I also like to spice it up a bit more. Maybe put some black pepper in it as well. And then you brown it, and so then when it's cooked, it has that texture of when it's cooked. So what I would say it takes about maybe 10 to 15 minutes. I'm paranoid with meat, so I like to cook it and make sure it's really cooked. But yeah, so, and I learned how to cook meat. So I definitely learned a lot about how to cook meat at the Blind School. I learned more about that through the different training programs I went to as an adult. The one in Littleton, but then I also, actually I did that when I was in high school in the summer. I don't know why I said adult. But I also went to a training program as an adult in another state in Arkansas for a little bit, and they did a lot of cooking. And they were wonderful. So I learned a lot of my blindness skills through my adaptive living instructor there, who was also blind. And she taught me how to cook ground beef, and she actually taught me this recipe with the Crockpot chili. But I've just improvised along the years. That's the fun thing about cooking. Yeah. So, sorry about that backtrack. Anyway, with the
No,
food,
that's fine. I was just wondering, do you feel like you learn more from the sighted cooks or the blind ones?
I would say both, because blind cooks are really good at teaching blindness skills, but they're not always the best at teaching. So let's say if something is let's say they can't always see your hand technique if you're cutting something, or they can't always see that, okay, did you pour it in correctly, or are you doing this properly? And so that's why I feel like a sighted person can say, okay, let's do hands-on, and that's why I've had some wonderful sighted, like the adaptive living instructor I had at School for the Blind in Arizona. She was sighted, and she did a lot of hands-on. So if you're trained, you know what you're doing, and you're sighted, then they can be wonderful. But then blind people can also bring over to the blindness skills. This is how you cook ground meat. This is how you feel this. This is the texture. The texture will change. You can feel it with your fork, or if you want to touch it, you can touch it and go wash your hands. It's so there's that extra subset of blindness skills that you may not always get from a sighted person. Because they can see, so it makes sense. They may not always think about the textures and think about the logistics of cooking meat as a blind person. What are the different steps that we have to take to ensure that this meat is cooked well and it tastes good, and that blind people are as capable of cooking this as much as a sighted person. So, yeah, I know that was a long answer to your question.
Oh, that's fine. That's fine. You explained it perfectly.
Oh, cool. So with the chili, once the ground beef is cooked, and once your cans of beans are rinsed and drained, which I like to use like a colander to rinse and drain them, and then your corn, you want to drain out the water, and once all that is done, I put everything into a crock pot. So you empty out all the cans in the crock pot. You put the beef in as well, of course, and the packets of, the chili seasoning packet, because you already used your taco seasoning to season the beef when it was in the pan on the stove. So I put everything in the pot together and mix it with a large fork or whatever utensil you want to use. And then I put it on low, and I cook it for about I cook it for about 5 to 6 hours, and the reason why I cook it so long, even though the meat is cooked, is because you want to cook it low and slow, and you want the flavors to blend. And so we want to cook it, for most of the day. You can cook it and then come back later. There's been times where I've cooked it for a little less time, and it just didn't taste as good. So I'd say low and slow, cook it all day if you want to. So yeah, and then it honestly feeds. Well, if you're me, it's just one person. It'll last you a while.
It
But if you're
feeds
like
me.
feeding this hungry, if you're feeding this hungry family with a bunch of like hungry, men, and you know how they like to eat, then yeah, your chili might only last you 2 days. So it just depends. And you can always, this is if you need to double your recipe, if you're cooking for a larger party or whatever you're doing, double it. You don't have to go by, just 1 pound of ground beef. No. Cook it according to the people that you're feeding, including yourself.
Most definitely. You don't want to forget yourself.
No, oh my gosh, no. So, yeah, so I enjoy it. I enjoy cooking it, especially in the winter, but I've been known to cook it in the summer before too. I don't care. And I like it.
Right.
It's tasty. So.
Well, Mary, if someone wants to get a hold of you, how would they reach you?
Well, I personally prefer not to give out personal information, just for confidentiality. I'm trying to think. Maybe I don't know if.
Well, they could always contact me, and I can tell you, and then you can call them back or whatever. Was that something that's good for you?
Yeah, unless the Cooking Without Looking has like an email account, and we could.
Yeah, they can. Well, we do. We actually do. So they could always email us on my email, and then I'll contact you, and I'll tell you someone wants to talk to you.
Okay, yeah, that's a possibility. Or even if there's like a sub email we create for me through Cooking Without Looking, or other show participants, then that's a possibility. Because yeah, I would love for people to contact me. I just prefer to keep my personal contact info confidential.
Well, that's fine. So, that's fine. That's fine. No problem. But if I want to thank you so much for being here today with us. We really enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun. And even though it is summer, yeah, chili sounds pretty good right now. So put a little sour cream. Cook-off. Yeah, there you go. And thank you again. We've been with Mary Sanders. This is the Cooking Without Looking TV show podcast. I'm Renee Rentmeester, and our website is www.cookingwithoutlooking.tv.wordpress.com. If you want to reach out to me, give me a call, 305-200-9104. Thank you again, Mary.
Thank you. It was my pleasure.
You take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.